list of item is actually displayed. Now we have this component that I created, which is called post sorting. It's exactly like our post list component that we made earlier in this series, except I removed a bunch of things. So I'm really just focusing on reversing the list. And you might know that inside of JavaScript, we can do something like an array.reverse, and that will actually reverse the array. So I'm using list and array in the same term here, but of course it's an array, and we want to reverse it. So we look at something like our posts.json. We just want to flip these things in the order of them. And you could do something like array.reverse to allow that to happen. So let's go ahead and implement that in a way that seems like it would be intuitive. And it would really just be grabbing the state, right? So whatever the state currently is, we want to go ahead and just say this.state.postList.reverse, right? That would be a logical way on how to do it. It's not a whole lot different than toggling a view, right? So we've already seen that, or like a true and false value. This might be a way that actually works. And see, I've already have the onClick method. It's already bound and all that. So let's go ahead and save it and take a look, hit reverse order. Nothing seems to be happening. Well, if you aren't using a child component like I am, it might be working for you, and it might be working just fine. We'll explain this in just a moment. But the main thing here is understanding that it's not working currently. So what I want to do is I want to actually take a look as to why. So I'm going to just put a const first of the original post list, and I'll just set it equal to state. And then I'll just do a let new function. So I'll just say new post list, and that's equal to post list.reverse. Right, so we're basically calling the same method here. Grab that and set that in as my state, but then I'll also console log this. I just want to verify that what I'm doing here is actually working, right? So I save that, come back in here, refresh this order, look into my console log. I press it a few times, so I should see some things coming through correctly. Okay, so I've got hello world, hello world. Doesn't look like it's wanting to actually reverse it for me. So let's go ahead and save everything. Save it just like this. Again, this is intuitively what I'd be doing. I'm just going to refresh in here, hit reverse order, and there we go. We see actual reverse order. Just make sure that you have saved, and you definitely have this there. But now when I click on that, it actually does reverse the order inside of the console, but the component, the subcomponent, the child component is not updating. So the nice thing here is that we have a way to update this. We've got component and mount, but the component's already mounted. What we did is we changed a property. So our prop is actually changing, which we could test, and you probably would want to test by quite literally deleting that child component and just returning a div of item.title and maybe putting a break tag in, or a list element, or whatever you wanted to do for testing these things out. But again, this is like, well, is it actually reversing? And I want to see that. If I hit reverse order now, what do you know? It does reverse. It does actually change. So let's go ahead and refresh back into what we had with that child component. And let's think about this. Well, the component itself is rendering. It renders with that initial property, right? Initial property in this case is the actual post itself. So it's actually rendering that out. But what we're doing is we're changing the state of this component, the parent component, and we're changing it, which means that that property is changing. However, in our detail, or the post detail in this case, that component, that child component, doesn't know how to handle a changed property because we don't have a method implemented for it. Luckily, React ships with such a method, and it is called component.did_update. So component.did_update is a method that is built in to our actual React component. Right? Every component can do this. And it takes a few arguments by default, and that's previous props and previous or prev state, and finally snapshot. So the thing that is like most important to us right now is previous props. Why is this the case? Well, again, we just said that our post list, that state is changing. So this mapping is also changing, although the component has already been rendered. So this prop is changing, a property is changing, not anything else. So all I need to do in here is say if this.props is not equal to previous props, then what do? Well, I just want to rerun that same component did mount method here. So I'm just going to make a new method since I'm sort of repeating myself in these two spots. And all this new method is going to be is say set state on props. Or let's go ahead and say set post state on props, right? And again, this is going to be based off of these constants here. Constant set state, just like that. So we'll just do this dot set state on props. There we go. Set post state on props. So we save that and refresh in here. I hit reverse order and it's working. So we learned two new things here. One of them being how to reverse an order inside of React, right? So that is fairly useful, even if you didn't need to update a child component. Then we went ahead and updated that child component. Now the question should be, how do we actually not just reverse an order, but change based off of some other parameter, such as like the oldest date versus the newest date?